Oh. Hey, here we are back again, and for the final sprint down the back straight. Speaking of witches, we haven't mentioned the racecourse recently, and Barry Fuchs, who tries very hard to keep the thing going, and is doing his best. We really must have Barry on again because he's good value for money, and his heart and soul is in trying to save the remnants of our racecourse here, where I doubt if we'll ever see racing again, although I see no reason why they couldn't have a special sprint. Right? What about the Lewis coronation sprint up the racecourse? We're bringing thousands, bringing lots of money to this. Oh, don't. No, we cannot ask our politicians and our leaders for imagination. That's something that they do not either understand or is in short supply among them. So let me not get carried away. Right. Now, we have the invitation out to Professor Gaskell. We have the invitation out to Melissa Conti, and hopefully by 10:30 they will both be here. But what we are going to do in the meantime is just have a little commentary, because I was reading Jan Muir, who apparently has been columnist of the year, but I don't normally read her, and there's no reason why I should really. Hang on, we've got somebody who's going to comment. Gary Toynton. Good morning, Gary. He just says, good morning, Keith. Very pleased, Gary, to see you on Mirador. And he's a great supporter, is our Gary. And we are grateful for people like him who tune in on a regular basis. Anyway, Jan Muir has struck a chord with me. The headline of her column this morning is "Embrace the bling, Charles. What's the point of pomp without the oomph?" And I must confess I have not criticized this one little bit. Not criticized this coronation one little bit. But I must confess I have been quite disturbed with, let's play this down, let's play that down. This is his coming. There's his, one of the things that whether you like the system or not, and let me tell you, don't dare criticize constitutional monarchy in my presence, because to me, all you're doing is you're charging towards instability of governance, as if we haven't got enough with the idiots that actually keep on pounding away in the House of Commons, not getting anywhere. No. So enough said? No, not enough said. Never enough said. Anyway, what she says is, poor King Charles. He can't do right for doing wrong. And he can't do wrong without making everything worse. But he can't have it both ways, which he is trying to do. He wants a slimmed down monarchy, but he wants his wife to be crowned queen, right? He wants a right-on realm alongside his personal fortune of £1.8 billion. And worst of all, he wants a coronation light, a diminished spectacle, shaved of excess ermine, pomp, circumstance, dukes, nobles, foibles, wombles, and Fergie. He wants everyone to understand that he understands that this is not 1950s Britain anymore. But what is the point of a coronation, she says, if not to make it a glorious, once-in-our-lifetime spectacular, a ceremony that will wow the watching world, a ceremony that underlines that the monarchy actually means something, and in many cases, something quite profound to a great number of British people, and she asked the right questions. Charles has played it carefully so far. He's not done a bad job. He's been winning friends and influencing people to where quite a number of senior people who would have said he didn't really distinguish himself as the Prince of Wales, are now supporting the fact that he looks as if he might be a good king. But this Jan Moore has absolutely put her finger on it. Let's have a great big party. Let's see the robes. Let's see the state coaches. You know, I've been very privileged. I've had private tours of the Westminster Abbey on 4 or 5 occasions. I've been to Evensong, where I've sat amongst the choir stalls, where you really get a wonderful sense of occasion, and what a beautiful, beautiful ceremony it is, whether you're religious or not. I've been very lucky in the might and to look and to see where our kings and queens have been crowned from 1066 onwards, even before that, is a wonderful, wonderful experience. Why have we decided to throw that out with the bathwater? Crazy. It's crazy. And then, you know, people who are not particularly keen on the monarchy, even anti-monarchists, but then they'll say, well, of course, it brings in billions and billions of pounds. Yeah, why? Not because of Charlie, not because of Camilla, not even because the row between Harry and William. It brings it in because of the pomp and the circumstance. And people love it. And they pay good money to see it and be part of it and part of the excitement. So what have we got? Slim it down. Oh, that's wonderful, some people will say. Yeah, well, don't expect the money to come flowing in if you do that. You can't have it both ways. Jan Moore is absolutely right. And this is where leadership from the monarch has been sadly lacking on his coronation. We're trying to do something about it here at the White Hart. It'll only be tiny, very, very tiny compared to what's happening in the rest of the country. But at least recognition that this, as she says, a ceremony of the lifetime. A ceremony that thrilled us in 1953, that united a nation battered from an awful, dreadful war. Well, we are a battered nation now. We have just undergone the most horrific half-decade that any populace, any nation should be expected to tolerate. And a bloody good party would have been a great way to have lifted the tension and the gloom and all the naughty things that have happened as a result. So yes, Jan Moore, I am with you. Let's celebrate. Let's make sure. Don't have to get pissed. Well, it's not a bad idea. Let's celebrate. Let's celebrate that we are a constitutional monarchy. Whatever you think of Charles, celebrate constitutional monarchy, the most stable form of government anywhere in the world. And I may say our particular form of a constitutional monarchy, was mooted by Plato in his Republic. What? 3,000 years ago? He more or less outlined exactly the sort of 3-level mixed responsibility form of governance in his Republic, saying this is the ideal. And here we are practicing it with people nipping around the fringes only because they personally are offended. Well, personally be offended. That's what a democracy is all about. But if you're going to actually knock the form of government, get your argument together. We shouldn't have a monarchy. It's obscene that they've got all this money and so on. That's not good enough. That's no argument against dissembling a very successful form of government. And if we're going to have that form of government, then let's embrace it enthusiastically and say, hey, here we are. We have a wonderful opportunity to party like mad, to say to the world, you look at the United Kingdom because we can do these things well. We do them well. So why water it down? Charlie, you weren't thinking straight, my boy, although you never do. Doesn't mean to say I'm anti-Charlie, believe me. Gary Taunton is being very kind. He says, keep up the good work, Keith. It's very kind of you, Gary. Well, here we go. Let's show it. Keep up the good work, Keith. Right. We're delighted, and we get that sort of compliment. There's got enough people that say, you're crap. And we may well be. but we do have a very good time in Mirador, starting first thing in the morning when we come in here, and we've got the lovely ladies. There are three ladies: Sally, Jane, who's been on holiday for 2 weeks. My God, we missed her. And Shannon is gorgeous and lovely and looks after us. And Shannon has always got a smile on her face. Always. So coming in here first thing in the morning is absolutely terrific. Stupendous. It gives us a lift. It really helps us. And it lifts our spirits. Now it's 10:30, so I hope that we're going to get through the key people are absolutely irrelevant on a Friday. It's Melissa, and I hope that she'll pop up in a minute, and I hope that our professor will pop up. They both got the invitation, and it's a question of the one thing that I forgot to alert people to. We had some problems at the beginning of the week with the guests because the invitation went into their spam folder, not into their box, what do they call it, the inbox. And it's one of those things that we have to alert people to, I guess, and I didn't do that this morning. So we in some ways we're experimenting. And now, guess what? You just had the beast, and now here's the beauty. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Keith. I just thought that was funny because I was telling myself, I was like, I feel like a beast this morning.
You never look like a beast, darling, but I think you're very brave putting yourself up next to me.
Yeah, we're in beastly competition this morning.
Well, it's lovely to see you, and I'm not quite sure whether we've actually managed to get so excited about this brave new way of interviewing that we may well have shot ourselves in the foot because it's good communication. I thought that you were going to invite the professor, and you thought I was. So anyway, I've sent through a link for him.
Okay.
But we had a problem earlier in the week that I hadn't anticipated, and we should alert people. It went into the chap's junk mail, and he didn't find it straight away. So whether in fact that's going to happen this morning, I don't know. But most certainly we will try to reschedule if we don't get him this morning. We'll try to reschedule. I think that interview would have been terrific, particularly since, let me tell you, that Melissa starred in a radio program which was on went all over the world actually in about the werewolves of the Texas werewolf.
Yes, Texas. Well, you did star in that as well, Keith.
I had a little bit. Yes, I stood in awe at your feet, as it were.
That was a lot of fun. That was so
Yeah,
much fun.
and it is floating around still on
Yes,
social media.
it's still on
Yeah,
YouTube on the
give
channel.
the exact title, Melissa. Give the exact title.
It's Texas Werewolf on Shed to World Communications, their channel. So,
Oh, right.
but yeah, another radio play will be coming shortly, though. I'm excited.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
excited.
That's great. I mean, this is the long and the short of it. Here we come in every morning at about 7:05, and I sit here. And oh my God, what are we going to do today? And here the Texas werewolf is carefully planned, laid out. Takes
Oh
almost 6 months
yes,
to do, and
yes.
it's a brilliant piece of work.
Yeah,
So
it did
we
take time,
really
but it was so much fun. It was so much
yeah,
fun.
the long and the short of it. And if I can just say that one small part went to our former mayor, Stephen Catlin, who
Oh,
I'm
he was
sorry
great.
to say is, but he's terribly ill at the moment,
Oh,
and not at all well. Actually, more by luck than judgment, he turned out to be my neighbour, and he popped in the other evening, and I must say that he is looking poorly. And in some ways, he is resentful, and I must say that I, on his behalf, am resentful that all the cancellations that took place because of lockdown and strikes and so on and so forth is he didn't get the attention that he should have been given as fast enough, and
right.
that partly has contributed to it. So I'm really very unhappy for him.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I have to reach out to him. I'll reach out to him maybe this week. So
good.
I'd love to see him when I'm in town. So
Oh yes. He would not be at all happy if you didn't. Um, uh, I think one of the things that we tried to do with Mirador is to, as we said, it is local but not parochial, and we embrace people all over the world, and we don't just sort of look for lost dogs. And the fact that we've got you and Suzanne, and for that matter, Jane in um, Hastings, and other people, is Rosie in London, and they are all involved in Mirador. And as a consequence, we reflect a great deal of different opinions, backgrounds, communities, ethnicity, and so on and so forth. So all those people that ask for inclusiveness, and I don't like the word, but inclusiveness, they've got it on Mirador.
yep.
Okay, now there are certain rituals that we go through, and the first one is to find out how one of our correspondents, Connor, who happens to be Melissa's son, is doing because he's been a reporter for NHK, the English language, although he does it in Japanese, I understand, because he's a fluent Japanese talker. But NHK, perhaps the most influential Japanese television service. And in between, he's just popping down and bracing his muscles to become a Marine and to climb into the cockpit faster than world aircraft. How's he doing?
Well, he's recovering from a weekend training, and he it's funny. As you know the image, the Marine sergeant yelling at the enlisted or the officer candidates. They yelled at him, but they yelled at him about two things that I don't yell, but I always tell him. I said, listen, number one, you have to cut your hair. It's too long. So they this is a family channel, so I can't really say what they said to him. But they said something about your ugly long hair. What the with your ugly long hair? So he got called out for that. And then one of the other things that Connor has a problem with is tying his shoes. They always end up untied. And I think in every country we've ever been to, someone has stopped and told him his shoes are untied, including London. Yes. And so his shoes, in fact, his boots were untied properly, not tied properly. So they stopped him, they yelled at him, and they got two of the other candidates to come, the other gentlemen to come and tie his shoes for him, completely embarrassing him in front of everyone. So yeah, but despite all of the yelling, he actually really thrived, and they are still very interested in having him come on. He is actually going down for a physical, and then he'll do his physical test, fitness test, and that's hard. That's hard.
Yes, but
So
he's moving in the right direction, and he's so far
yes,
winning. Yeah,
yes,
that's great.
yes.
That's terrific. Absolutely terrific. Now, how about you? What have you been doing in the past week?
Um, Working and studying, going to school.
Right. Well, we'll get onto the school in a minute, because this is where you really take over, because the disability amongst children is the key to your degree, but also it's something that you have said, Keith. This is something I'd like to use Meridor for. So you can have your moment in a moment or two. But first of all, right at the moment, I see this morning, for instance, that the head of the Fed, who's a lady, by the way, is saying, "Hey, listen, get used to the fact that we've got to get along with China, because if the conflict goes too far, it's going to end up making a mess of the global economy." Now, you work in a bank or a financial institution. Is what's your take on that?
Honestly, we really don't deal very much with China right now because there aren't any sanctions. We deal with, we had to close a lot of Russian accounts as a result of the sanctions and the closing of business with Russia. But China, there is some restrictions on companies involving Chinese tech, but they haven't actually gone full-blown sanctions on China just as yet. I think the two countries have developed such a mistrust, and I think both sides, have in fact contributed to that. But just the fact that we're dealing with a nation, with the kind of leader they have, it's very difficult for us to trust them, and especially in business. You have to have a serious trust in business, and that's what ties the two of us together. Without those ties, it's a problem. So I can understand the caution that we're dealing with right now, because we could be dealing with mass destruction, not just economic hardship.
Yeah,
So we have to be very careful. I think
yeah,
it's hopefully this de-escalates. We of World War III. I mean, none of us have, except for you, have really, well, I'm sure others have experienced what it's like to fight in a world war. My father, would tell us horror stories, but none of us are ready for that. We're all very pampered. Well, most of us, you know.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's we're sometimes accused of being old farts, and when I was a boy, but there were lots of hardships such as living under the cloud of being at war, that people should pay attention to, because it ain't any fun.
No.
And some of the things that I say, they call it the lollipops. Some of the lollipops that are taken away just because of economic stress at the moment will absolutely disappear. And living that sort of life when you haven't been used to it is it's going to. I mean, we worry about, and I'm sure that you'll have some comment on mental health amongst young people in a minute. But mental stress comes from suddenly your life totally changing, and life could totally change. I'm lucky because I started off and didn't even know that I was being challenged, because I was when the war ended, I was 5 years of age. Um, and one of my abiding memories is that meat was rationed. And I didn't understand why meat was rationed. All I knew was that we went to the butcher and we gave him some coupons, and we got some meat. and that if I sang "You Are My Sunshine" to the butcher, I got an extra sausage. And this is my contribution to the family menu.
You were working at a young age, Keith.
Absolutely, yes, yes. Blue-eyed and blonde-haired, which I'm not now. Well, I'm blue-eyed still, but blonde hair has disappeared, I'm afraid. But you know, when I read some of these reports about you know, something happens to somebody in the family, she was my little angel, or he was my little angel. Well, I think, bloody hell, now I know what they were looking at when I was 4 or 5 years of age, and no longer. All right, look, Melissa, it's now it's 10:43, so I want to hand over to you so that you can now talk about both your degree, but also that this is something that is of great concern to you, and that you like to use this forum to make various points. So there you go, my dear. It's up to you.
Well, thank you, Keith. Quite an introduction. Well, this week, we're just discussing healthcare in this country, and how really without some of our systems, the disabled just wouldn't be able to live independent lives and reach their potential. Prior to Obama, President Obama, we really didn't have a system that would help those in the middle of. We have a system that helps the elderly called Medicare, and then we have a system that helps the poor, Medicaid, but there's nothing in between. We don't have insurance for anyone in between. So if you're not very poor or over 65, you're without health insurance unless you can get it from your employer. And so if you can imagine someone who's disabled, if it's difficult for them to get a job. And a lot of times when they would walk in for an interview, be quite capable of doing the job, the employer's looking at them as a healthcare cost. And so they decide not to hire them. So there are, I guess back when Obama was the president, he enacted something called the Affordable Care Act, where it was basically, it wasn't like an NHS, but it would subsidize insurance companies to take people on at a lower cost. Not no cost. Maybe it might be $500 a month, maybe $1,000 a month insurance premiums, as opposed to maybe $2,000 a month. And it was dependent on your assets. It was dependent on your whatever money you brought in. So it's at least something. We at least have something. So it does help the disabled in that way, because they can get jobs without employers supplying the insurance, and they can get it through the national system. You still have to pay. You know, it's not the NHS. You still have to pay, but at least it's something. Yeah, there was the hope was that it was going to be a single payer system like the NHS, but they couldn't get it through Congress, so they had to compromise with, okay, we'll subsidize the insurance companies. Why do we need the insurance companies? If somebody please explain this to me. You got to explain it to me, because I don't get it. You know, our Medicare for senior citizens runs just fine without the middleman of an insurance company. They take all the money. I mean, insurance companies have to get paid a lot of money. That money's not going to care.
And all they're doing is providing an administration which isn't needed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Doctors get so frustrated with the insurance companies. So anyway, so that's my take on it. That's our discussion for the week, is that the disabled, they need healthcare.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, this is a very interesting topic, particularly since the NHS comes up under a great deal of criticism and stress, sometimes rightly so. I mean, I always make the point is I refuse to laud the NHS, but I very quickly say that doesn't mean to say that I don't have a great deal of respect for the doctors and nurses, the people that treat me. It's the bureaucratic system of the NHS where, you know, it's the old story is it costs about £200 and 10 people to change a light bulb. Because of the bureaucracy. So I have no argument with the level of care. but I do have an argument with the administration. And it sounds to me as if your insurance companies are really the NHS in terms of bureaucratic terms of the American system.
Right. It's just that we have to pay for that, and as individuals.
Right.
So I
And,
mean,
and
my insurance for my son it's about $600-700 a month. I have to
wow.
I have to pay. Could you imagine if they abolished the NHS and each of you had to
Yes.
pay, as an elderly person, you had to pay $1,000 a month?
Yes. I mean,
Just for that's not even for care. That's just for premiums.
yes. So
It's
going
crazy.
way back to 1947 or 48, when the NHS was introduced, is by actually, it's I've been rabbiting on this morning, as I often do, saying I don't approve of party politics in local government. But in national government, we had a Labour government, of course, and that is who instituted the NHS broadly as we know it. And that was the best piece of legislation, which I doubt would have found favour under the Tories.
Right. I don't understand. I guess my question is, why don't the Tories want health insurance?
well,
Because
I,
they're
I don't, I don't know.
they're wealthy.
Yeah,
They can afford it.
I mean, in some ways, just before you came on, I was reading a little bit from one of the Daily Mail's columnists who is saying, why has Charles dumbed down the coronation to all intents and purposes? And she doesn't approve of that because she thinks that the way that it was is very very pertinent to the situation. It's a once in a lifetime celebration, but and in some ways I agreed with that. But the Tories of the post-war years were Winston Churchill. They were Anthony Eden. They all came from Eton. They all came from wealthy families, from a privileged elite. And I don't think necessarily that it was that they were against this sort of thing. Is they just simply did not understand it.
Right.
There was very much the Marie Antoinette thing: let them eat cake.
Yes. With no
So
health insurance.
no, with no health insurance. So I think that it is turned out that we were lucky that we had the government, and the thinking of that time was changing dramatically.
Right.
Yes, Churchill was a remarkable leader, as a wartime prime minister, and he did a terrific job. But he was not a man who understood his people terribly well. I don't know whether you've seen the movie. I forget what it's called, but it's the latest movie made about Churchill during the war. And there is nobody knows whether it's true or not. There is a scene in which he actually goes down onto the underground and chats to people in the underground to try and see what they're thinking. As whether he ever did that or not, I have no idea. But it was a good little touch from the yeah.
I would imagine it would always be nice to have a leader who was a rags to riches story,
Oh
so that it's understood that from the rags to the riches, I understand you, I've been there,
yeah,
rather than just the riches. They don't
yeah.
understand. They
Well,
really
actually,
just don't. It's not that they're bad people. They just don't, they haven't lived it. That's all.
no, and the thing is that I think you're absolutely right, and I think that it is very, 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 very difficult for that to happen, probably in any society. But it maybe seem a little off pieced, as it were, to say this, but I often hear people say, "Oh gosh, I'd love to work for the BBC." Well, you stand as much chance as actually getting an ice cream in the middle of an iceberg, because the system encourages people from a certain part of our society. And I look at me, because I can be a real prat sometimes, but I boast that on Mirador we had Annie Verrill, we had Sophie Harris, and we had Lalada Richardson, three young ladies who could have got a job and been very distinguished at the BBC at any time. They were natural talent, and we brought them along. You were part of that help process because of your experience, and they would never ever have seen the front door of the BBC, and that is the tragedy of this country. I'm using broadcasting as an example, but quite often people who would really make a great contribution never get a chance to get in through the front door, and it's
Well,
very
see,
sad.
this is the beauty of the Instagram or the Facebook or the YouTube, because I know from myself and my TV consumption, and I very, very rarely do I watch my television. It's always this, it's just this black box, it's just black screen right over there, because I get to decide now what I'm watching. I don't want a television box to decide what I'm watching anymore. And I never thought I would ever come to that conclusion. Never thought I would, but I have. And that's the real threat to the BBC and the rest of them. People getting their news elsewhere. They're getting it on YouTube channels. They're getting it on other news organizations.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's important. But just to that point, like Annie or anyone else, I think honestly, what the problem is that it's that very thought that you just mentioned, that because they're not from the background, they can't do it. So in their minds, they give up. They give up.
Yeah,
Because
that's
they
right.
think they can't do it. It was like my story of coming out of school I was a vocal performance major. I wanted to work on Broadway. And my father says that's too hard. And as a child, as a young person, you're really very greatly influenced by your parents. So
Yeah,
in my
yeah,
mind, it was too hard. Then my father came up with the idea, well, why don't you be a journalist, or why don't you go work at the radio station as a disc jockey? Or you can read the news on television. It's very easy. All you have to do is sit up there and read. And I'm like, oh, it's easy? Okay. So I did it because I thought I could. They don't think they can. So they made the decision to give it up,
yeah.
because
I
I'm just telling you, they're rags to riches stories, and you have to ask yourself, why does somebody who's poor all of a sudden build a corporation or do, and I know it's difficult, but they
yeah,
do it because they
yeah,
have conviction. If you don't have conviction out there, you're
yeah.
not going anywhere.
You are absolutely right. And as small though we are, we have had about 4 or 5 students associated with Mirador. And when they come in, they have been taught that television is a certain type of behavior, and you need these skills and so on and so forth. None of them understand what television is all about. So I try to teach them. And no, they will not have it. They know what it's all about. And I've out of that 5, 4 of them, I go in and say, "Good evening. I'll have a pint, please." There's the total lack of conviction about what the industry is about, and a total lack of willingness to be flexible enough to say, "Okay, I've got this understanding from university, but I'm in the real world now."
Right. And
There,
it's
that's a
also,
lovely rant.
yeah. But honestly, if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to believe in you?
Exactly.
You have to
Exactly.
be able to push yourself through. You take a look and see, okay, so the presenters on BBC or the reporters on BBC, where did they come from? What was their experience? I'm going to take some of those ideas, and I'm going to end up on the BBC, and that's it. And that's it. And they don't think about anything else. And that's what they do. Period. Like with me, and I guess I did that. I wasn't even conscious of it. I just had so much fun as a reporter, and I was going to go here, and I was going to work for the Associated Press, and I'm going to be on public television. Oh yeah, I'll do that. Of course I'm going to do that. Of course I'm going to do this. Of course. Why wouldn't I? Somebody has to do it. Why wouldn't I do it?
Why
But
not?
if you don't have that conviction,
Yeah.
you're not going to go anywhere,
Yeah.
even if daddy
It
gives you a
is.
job.
Yeah, we put up on the local social media is I mean, where we're woefully lacking at Mirador is in administrative experience. So we sort of said, is there anybody out there, either retired or whatever, who would like to help us? And said no. And there's no immediate remuneration. Well, you would have thought that we'd actually slapped everybody in the face. What? You know, blah, 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 payment, da, 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 da. And I said in response, I said, in our early days, I said, one of my colleagues worked for 4 years for free just to make sure that she was good enough to go into the industry. Well, nobody will do that these days. And my response is no. And look at the state of broadcasting. It is pathetic. And it's because people do not want to be trained. They don't want to understand what the reality is. They want to do their thing. And the viewers are rejecting them in the millions, not just the thousands, in the millions.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell a seasoned journalist. But what we have to do here, and I don't know whether it's the same over by you, is that we have to I started very small little radio station. Then I went to a slightly bigger radio station. Then I went to small newspaper. Then I went to a very small TV station. And then I got my break at the Associated Press through all those contacts that I made. And I was freelancing for the Associated Press as well, made very little money, made very, very little money for those years.
Yes.
And then I was able to finally land a job as just a vacation relief replacement at Associated Press. And I traveled the country just to do that. And I was let go a couple of times because my contract had ended, but I kept going. The next job, no, I'll take the next job wherever it is. I'll go to Arkansas. I don't care. I'll go to Kansas City, wherever.
Yeah.
Then I ended up in Miami, and I was able to really show my prowess at journalism. All those years of training, I covered one of the biggest hurricanes they had, Hurricane Andrew at Category 5. And so I was out there by myself, basically. And so then I was able to show my prowess, and then I was able from there to get onto television, at public television. But you have to go through that lousy process and actually really learn and enjoy it. But
And for those people who don't know, by the way,
you can't just jump to the BBC. You have to have
Melissa was the
experience.
anchor of the most important business program, Coast to Coast business program, daily. It went out on something like 800 television stations across the United States. And I think our daily viewership was 8 million people, which actually would put you about number 3 at that particular time in the United Kingdom. So
you got to have the small town practice first. That's where you make your mistakes. That's where you learn how to interview. That's where you learn how to write a story. That's where you learn how to deal with adversity, you know, and how you learn investigative journalism. That it takes time. And the feature writing, I love that too. That was so much fun. So coming up with stories, how do you come up with a story if it's not laid at your feet? So yeah, there's a lot of things you learn. And my son kind of just jumped into a network, right. But and I think he just does what he does because he knows he could do it.
Yes.
He literally will reinvent himself. Now he had his struggles, terrible struggles, but he's like, no, I don't like who I am right now. I don't like who I'm being. I'm changing. I'm going to do this. And then you fight through it. That's it. But you got to have the conviction first. That has to come first. Without it, you're not going to push through the challenges.
Oh, that's right. You're absolutely right. Now it's 11 o'clock. In fact, it's 11:01. So we have to say goodbye. But there are 2 things which I want to impart to you. First of all, I left the hotel, and nowadays I don't drive. I mean, I've driven all my life, but nowadays I don't, partly because, as you know, I've got a disease which makes it a bit dicey for me to do so. And I got to the bus stop and I started to chat to a lady, a lovely lady, and I explained to her about Mirador Television. She said, "How exciting! Can I come by?" and so on and so forth. And then we carried on the conversation on the bus we shared together. And she said, "What's your name?" So I gave her my name. And I said, and what's yours? And she said, I'm Amanda Jenner. I said, oh, that's a name. Yes, she said, I was raised in a brewery. So I looked at her and she said, yes, I am the sister of the managing director of Harvey's Brewery. So I said, well, you tell him that we've got 2 bottles of beer for him to taste. I will go back and I will tell him, she said.
What a great story. I mean, what, it's great. That's a great story. Love that.
The other thing is, of course, that you are coming over for the coronation, and I hope that we'll see you, and I hope that you'll come to Lewis. But is over the years, we haven't spent much time together except on television. And I sometimes think that you and I live on television because that's where we're always meeting and enjoying life, and a friendship that has gone on since 1990, believe it or not, and it's been a good professional friendship, but a good personal friendship as well. And having you on our television program each Friday is just a delight, an absolute delight.
Thank you.
And
Keith.
the second thing I was going to tell you is the figures have started to go wild. We have started now to really pick up lots and lots of viewers. Now, when I say that, it's not the 8 million that we were used to, but we are now nudging the thousands, and we are getting a lot of reaction. So it's been worth the pain. It's been worth the hard fight, and you've been part of it all along the way, Melissa. And I'm grateful, and so are our viewers, because looking at me every morning, looking at you, they go, oh.
Oh,
now,
thank you, Keith.
ask to do one other thing is obviously our link didn't get through to the professor. Can I ask you to contact him simply because I am very anxious that this interview takes place, and it's much easier for you to arrange with him when it's good for the two of you, and then you just come back to me, and I will fit you into the schedule.
That sounds like a plan. Sure,
Great stuff.
I would do that.
All right. Have a good day, as they say.
Have a good day. Good weekend.
Toodle
Bye.
pip.
Toodle pip.
Well, there we are. We come to the end of our week. Come to the end of our day. It is 11:05. Delighted that you could be with us. Delighted that we've had rather an interesting week. As our interviews have not gone according to plan, but we will make sure that we will improve between now and the middle of May, and is hopefully we learn by our mistakes. And actually, I was talking to a lady who has some problems in life the other day, and I said, is what you have to do is you have to understand, as the very wise people say, you will never understand the heady experience of success unless you've ever experienced abysmal failure. It's the truth. Till Monday, once again at 8:30. Join us then. Toodle, 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 pip. God bless you all. Have a nice weekend. Ooh, where's the thing? Where's the thing? We've got to say goodbye properly. Here we go.